She was a millionaire, powerful, untouchable. Until one night, she was left bleeding in a dark alley. But just as her vision faded, a poor black boy stepped from the shadows. He didn't know her name, but what she whispered to him made him cry, and what happened next, no one saw coming. The night air in Brooklyn was thick with drizzle, the kind that didn't pour but seeped into everything, coats, shoes, and bones. On the corner of Folsom and Ninth, the streets glistened, under flickering lights, reflecting 1,000 secrets of a city too fast to care. The bars were closing, taxis honked, and across the alleyways, shadows moved with lives no one noticed. In that very alley, crouched behind an overflowing trash bin, was 12-year-old Jamal Rivers, skinny and small for his age, with skin too dark to be seen in the dim and eyes too sharp to miss a thing. His sweatshirt had holes, his jeans were frayed, and his sneakers didn't match. No one ever stopped to ask why he was alone. He was part of the street, unseen, forgotten, left behind. Across town, in a penthouse suite lit by floor-to-ceiling windows, Victoria Harland ended a call with a sigh. The youngest black female CEO to lead a health tech conglomerate, Victoria was fierce, brilliant, and empty. Her face was on magazines, her quotes in Forbes, but at 42, her calendar had no birthdays marked, no dinners with family, and no laughter in her hallways. Her son Miles had stopped speaking to her 2 years ago after years of missed recitals, broken promises, and the day she sent an assistant to his high school graduation. That night, driven by something she couldn't name, Victoria turned down her driver and walked, in heels too sharp, in a dress too sleek, through neighborhoods she hadn't seen since her own childhood. Maybe she was chasing memories. Maybe she was just running from herself. The alley was supposed to be a shortcut. Instead, it was where the past caught up to her, with fists. She didn't see them coming. 2 men in dark hoodies emerged from the shadows like wraiths. The first grabbed her purse. The second struck her with a pipe. She screamed. No one heard. Blood smeared her vision. Pain lanced her ribs and her legs gave out. "Don't move, lady," one growled. "Unless you want to be a headline." Jamal had seen enough. He was used to violence, fists in foster homes, taunts on corners. But something in the woman's eyes froze him. As she crumpled, barely conscious, her eyes locked onto his wide, desperate, human dot, and for the first time in years, someone saw him not as a ghost or threat, but a chance. The men left her in a heap, laughing, disappearing into the night with her bag and dignity. Jamal hesitated. He'd been told all his life, don't get involved. Stay invisible. Keep your head down. But his feet moved before his brain caught up. He ran to her. Blood pooled beneath her temple. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Her hand gripped his sleeve. "It's okay, miss. Hang on," he whispered. His phone was a burner, barely worked, but he dialed 911 anyway. "Lady's been hurt. Bad. She's bleeding. We're near 9th and Folsom. Please hurry." Her hand tightened. Her voice rasped like wind against gravel. And then she whispered, barely audible, "You're the first." "Who didn't walk away?" Jamal blinked. He didn't know what to say. People always walked away from him. I'm just a kid," he muttered. But she shook her head, eyes glassy. "You stayed." She coughed. Blood trickled from her lip. "If I die here," she whispered again, "know this. You saved more than me tonight. You saved what I lost long ago." Then her voice cracked, trembling through the air like glass breaking. I wish my son had your heart." Jamal's throat closed. No one had ever said anything like that to him. Not the foster moms, not the teachers, not the social workers. The ambulance sirens howled in the distance. Jamal stood as they came closer. He looked down at her one last time. He didn't leave. His name didn't wait for thanks. When the EMTs took over, he slipped into the shadows like mist in morning light. Across the city, news of the attack spread. Millionaire CEO mugged, hospitalized after brutal attack in Brooklyn. The cameras covered the crime scene. The media obsessed over her wealth, her company, her pain. But no one mentioned the boy. No one mentioned Jamal. Because cameras don't catch shadows. Victoria woke in a white hospital room. Her ribs were fractured, her cheekbone cracked, her memory blurred. But the voice of that boy, that stranger, echoed in her skull. She demanded to see him. But the paramedics hadn't gotten his name. The police reviewed footage. They saw her attackers. But the boy was hidden, only his silhouette visible. Days passed. She asked again and again. The boy who stayed, did anyone find him? No leads, they said. Probably just a street kid, but Victoria knew better. That street kid had done what no security guard, no assistant, no friend or family had done in years. He stayed. The boardroom applauded, but Victoria Harlan didn't hear them. Her assistant nudged her subtly as the meeting adjourned, and cameras clicked around the sleek walls of the Harlan Medical Innovations headquarters. But her mind was still in that alley, in the echo of a child's voice, in the whisper that had pierced deeper than the metal pipe ever could. I wish my son had your heart. That boy, whoever he was, had disappeared before the world could even thank him. No one knew his name. No one cared enough to ask. And that, more than the blood and bruises, haunted Victoria. So she did something she hadn't done in over a decade. She shut down her calendar. No interviews. No panels, no ribbon cuttings. She left behind the armor of her tailored suits and flawless makeup, put on jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie and hit the streets. Her driver, confused, obeyed as she gave a simple instruction. Take me to where the city forgets its children. That's how she found herself at Hope Street Shelter, a low-budget facility tucked between two crumbling warehouses where the air smelled like mildew and overboiled beans. Kids barely older than 10 sat on steps, staring at the ground, eyes that had seen too much too soon. She showed the only thing she had, a sketch from memory. Just the outline of a small frame, a hoodie, curls under a cap, and wide, haunted eyes. Anyone seen this boy? They shook their heads, or didn't answer at all. She visited 6 shelters that week. She slept in the backseat of her SUV. She shared meals on curbs with runaways. She met a girl named Bree who said, "People don't go missing in these streets. They just get missed." And that cut her deeper than the injuries ever had. Meanwhile, Jamal sat behind the public library, chewing a piece of hard bread he'd swiped from a trash can behind a bagel shop. His stomach growled. His bones ached. But what bothered him more was the feeling. He had tried to forget her, the woman with blood on her face and softness in her eyes. But her voice kept replaying in his head. You saved my faith in people. No one had ever needed him before. Not like that. And no one had ever said they wished he was theirs. That was something only good kids heard. Kids with beds and moms and birthday cakes. Why had she said that? Why had she cried? He didn't know. And he didn't want to. But something inside him was changing. Victoria returned to the alley one night. It was raining again. She stood at the exact spot she had been attacked. Her body tensed instinctively. Her fingers clenched. The shadows danced just like they had that night. But this time she wasn't afraid. This time she waited. And after hours, when the night had thinned out and the streetlights broken wings, she saw him, curled beside a heating vent, wrapped in a torn blanket, arms around his knees, eyes closed but not asleep. Kids like him didn't sleep deeply. Not out here. She stepped forward slowly. Hey, she whispered. His eyes opened, instantly alert. A spark of recognition flared. Then panic. He backed up. I didn't take anything, I swear. No, she said gently. You gave me everything. Jamal blinked. His heart raced. He looked older than 12 in that moment, like someone who'd survived a war. Why are you here? He asked. His voice was small. Tired. Victoria sat down on the wet curb, her fancy clothes soaked, her pride gone. "Because you saw me when no one else did," she said. "You helped me when I was at my lowest. And I haven't stopped thinking about you since." Jamal stared. "Waiting for a catch. You're rich," he muttered. "Why would you care?" Victoria smiled faintly. "Because money can't buy what you gave me. You didn't just save my life. You saved something I thought was dead." He squinted, unsure. "I'm not here to adopt you or fix you," she said. "I'm just here so you don't feel alone." Jamal looked at her for a long time. Rain trickled down his cheek, but he didn't flinch. "No one ever came back," he whispered. "Not once." "I'm here now," she replied. "For the next." Several weeks, Victoria returned. She brought food, blankets, books, but she never pressured him. She just sat beside him, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. She told him about her son Miles, how she'd failed him, how she missed him every day, how Jamal reminded her of the good she once had. He listened quietly. And one day, without looking up, he asked, "Do you think people like me ever get a real chance?" Victoria turned to him, her eyes shining. "I think people like you are the chance." That night, Jamal didn't disappear when she left. He stayed. And the next morning, he was still there when she returned. Eventually, she convinced him to come with her, not to her penthouse, but to a small apartment she'd renovated near the youth center. It had warm lights, a bunk bed, a bookshelf, a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon. She didn't call it home. She just called it his space. She set up tutors, therapy, a social worker. She let him take his time. She didn't force school. She didn't force trust. And every day when she visited, he asked her something new. "What was your favorite book as a kid? Why did your son stop talking to you? Do you ever get scared?" She answered everything. Until one night, over rice and beans, he asked, "Why are you really helping me?" Victoria looked at him for a long time. Then she reached across the table and gently touched his hand. "Because in the darkest moment of my life, you showed up. You didn't run. And I promised myself I'd never run from you either." Tears filled his eyes, but he blinked them back. "Can I call you Miss V?" he asked. She smiled. "Only if I can call you Jay." The courtroom smelled like old wood and colder memories. For the first time in years, Victoria Harland wasn't wearing her signature power suit. No heels, no designer bag. Just a simple gray blazer and a necklace her mother once gave her before. The world got too loud to hear love. She stood not as a CEO today, but as a woman who'd almost died. Jamal sat in the front row, feet barely touching the ground, shoulders tight with a mixture of pride and fear. He'd never been in a courtroom before, not as a witness, not with someone fighting for him, and certainly not with someone calling him family. It had taken months to get here. Victoria had used every connection, every back channel, every ounce of her influence, not to secure a settlement or hide her scars, but to find the two men who attacked her. She hired her own investigators, paid for facial recognition software, tracked pawn shops where her stolen items might have landed, and when the NYPD shrugged and said, "These things happen, ma'am," she looked them dead in the eye and replied, "Not to people like me, and especially not to kids like him." One of the attackers, a known repeat offender, had tried to flee the city. The other had been arrested on an unrelated robbery. They'd laughed through most of the initial hearings until Victoria walked in. Until she showed the court photos of her wounds, the trauma she still carried, the bruises on her body, and the tear in her heart. But she also showed them something else. A letter. It wasn't written by a lawyer. It was handwritten by a 12-year-old. By Jamal. "I never had a real home," the letter read. "I never thought people saw me. But that night, I saw someone who needed help, and I didn't think. I just ran to her. Not because I'm brave, but because she looked like me, scared and alone. And I knew that feeling. He continued, Miss V says I saved her life. But she saved mine too. She's the first person who came back for me. I don't want revenge on those men. I want them to know what they took, not just her purse, but her peace, her faith in people, her sense of safety. They didn't just hit her with a pipe, they hit me with it too. And I never want another kid to feel what I felt when I thought no one would help. The judge paused after reading. Silence swept the courtroom like a wave of truth no one could outrun. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty. Maximum sentence allowed. Victoria didn't cry. She simply reached over and held Jamal's hand. He didn't flinch. For the first time, someone had fought for him. Not because he had anything to offer, but because he mattered. Back at the apartment later that night, Jamal sat cross-legged on the couch, peeling the label off a bottle of ginger ale. Victoria had cooked real food, not takeout. Roasted chicken, greens, and cornbread. He didn't eat right away. He just looked at her. Why'd you do it? He asked. She paused. Do what? Go through all that. Trial, police, courtrooms, lawyers. That's not your world. She smiled softly, folding her napkin. You're wrong, she said. This is my world now. You're my world now. His lip trembled, just for a second. But I'm just a kid from nowhere. You're a kid from courage, she corrected him. From heart. From hope. He looked down, then said, I used to think no one saw me. Now, sometimes I don't know how to believe this is real. It's real, she said, reaching over. And you don't have to believe it all at once. Just believe it today. We'll try again tomorrow. Days turned into weeks. Jamal started school again. Not a regular one, but one for youth survivors. Kids like him. He didn't trust easily, but he had a desk, a pencil, and a teacher who said his name like it mattered. Victoria didn't hover. She was just there. Some days he called her Miss V, other days he just called her home. One afternoon, after class, he came home with something in his backpack. What you got there? Victoria asked, wiping flour off her hands. She'd been baking, terribly, but he liked the effort more than the cookies. He pulled out a crumpled drawing. It was of two stick figures, one with curls and a crooked smile, the other in heels holding an umbrella. She laughed. Is that supposed to be me? He nodded shyly. You're taller in real life. And meaner. Mean? In a good way, he chuckled. She put the drawing on the fridge. I love it. It's our first photo. He looked at her. We're not family, right? She knelt down to his level. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's just someone who doesn't leave, who sees you, who stays. He nodded. Then, after a pause, he whispered, you stayed. The next morning, Victoria found a sticky note on her desk. It read, thank you for not walking away. If I ever have a real last name again, I hope it's yours. Her hands shook. Her breath caught, and for the first time in years, she let herself weep. Not from fear, not from shame, but from gratitude. There was a hush. Not the kind that fills awkward pauses or follows dull speeches. This hush had weight. It gripped the crowd of nearly 500 in the city's grand youth Summit Auditorium. Teachers, community leaders, students, politicians, all silent, all waiting. The announcer's voice broke through. Our final speaker tonight is someone who reminds us what bravery looks like when no one's watching. A boy, now 14 but with eyes older than his years, stepped onto the stage. His navy blazer was slightly too big. His black slacks were ironed, though the crease wasn't perfect. His curls had been trimmed. His name tag read, Jamal Rivers, youth advocate, future leader. He reached the podium, adjusted the mic, took a breath that felt like swallowing a mountain, and then he began. 2 years ago, I was invisible. Not because I wanted to be, but because the world made me that way. I slept behind dumpsters, ate from trash bins. I didn't go to school. I didn't know my real last name. I thought life was about surviving one more night, not dreaming about what could be. Then one night, I heard a sound, someone crying for help in the dark. And even though I was scared, I looked. I saw her, a woman bleeding on the street. And for the first time in my life, someone looked back at me, like I mattered. In the front row, Victoria Harlan sat still, tears welling in her eyes. Gone was the woman who once measured success in quarterly earnings and luxury watches. Tonight, she wore pride on her sleeve and a locket around her neck with a photo of her and Jamal taped inside. Jamal glanced at her before continuing. I didn't know who she was. I just knew she needed someone. So I stayed. I called for help. I held her hand. And before the ambulance came, she said something I'll never forget. She whispered, "I wish my own son had your heart. I didn't." Cry then. I waited until the sirens faded. I ran before they asked who I was. Because back then, people like me didn't get remembered. He paused, scanned the audience. Hundreds leaning in, breathless. But she did remember me. She searched. Every shelter, every street, she found me. And she didn't try to fix me with money or promises. She just showed up, every day, with food, with books, with stories. She didn't walk away. And that's when I learned what family really is. Not always. Blood, sometimes. It's someone who sees the worst parts of you and still stays. A quiet murmur of sniffles rose from the crowd. Grown men wiped their eyes. School counselors clutched tissues. Even the mayor, sitting stiffly in the back, bowed his head. Today I live in a real home. I go to school. I have goals. But more than that, I have dignity. Because someone believed I deserved it. I don't want to be a millionaire. I want to be someone else's miracle. Just like someone was mine. And then, Jamal stepped back. The entire room stood. Applause thundered. Through the hall, not just for a speech, but for a life reclaimed. For a boy who'd risen from shadows and now stood in the light. After the ceremony, dozens gathered around Jamal, shaking his hand, praising his courage. But he made his way straight to Victoria, who stood back, hands folded, proud tears slipping. Quietly down her cheeks. He walked right up to her. "Did I do okay?" he asked, voice trembling just a little. Victoria crouched, arms open. "You did more than okay," she whispered. "You did something most adults never do. You healed out loud." He wrapped his arms around her, tighter than ever before. Later, that evening, as the crowd thinned and lights dimmed, Victoria and Jamal walked together down the stone steps of the auditorium. The night was cool, calm, different than the one where it all began. "Miss V," Jamal said, looking up at the stars, "what do you think would have happened if I didn't look that night?" She thought for a moment. "I think maybe I would have survived," she said. "But I would have stayed broken, angry, closed off, and I never would have found you." He nodded, then said softly, "I think I was meant to find you too." She smiled. "Maybe you didn't save me from dying, Jamal. Maybe you saved me from the life I was living." He chuckled. "Then I guess we both got lucky in that alley." 1 year later, Jamal was chosen to represent the city in a national youth conference. He spoke again, this time on national television. And when the interviewer asked, "Who's your biggest role model?" he didn't even pause. He looked directly into the camera and said, "My guardian, my mentor, my second chance. She found me when I was lost and never once asked me to become someone else. She just helped me find me." Epilogue. The plaque outside Harlan Youth Center now reads, "The Jamal Rivers Hall of Courage, dedicated to the boy who stayed and the woman who believed." Because sometimes it only takes one moment in the dark for the right light to find you. And sometimes that light is a boy with nothing in his pocket except a heart big enough to change the world. The end.